Meet Smarty, the easiest to implement and most accurate address intelligence suite on the planet, offering you the #1 address verification service that securely processes billions of addresses daily. Easily integrate Smarty's reliable API to efficiently clean data, lower shipping costs, and ensure top-notch user experiences, all with legendary free support. See for yourself why people are simply bananas for Smarty.
Today's webinar is about a single parameter that will improve your address data, and we're super excited to get started. So our presenter today, we have Easton Gibson, one of our US Street API software engineers with us. We're really excited to hear what you've got to say. So without further ado, Easton.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, well, we're going to be talking about enhanced mode today, as well as just our address validation in the US in general. We have this nice switch here on the screen that I really like as a graphic, just to demonstrate how easy it is to switch over from our different lookup modes that we have. So we'll be starting off by looking at those different match strategies we have for doing address validation, what the difference between them is, and what they'll each give you. So we'll be looking at strict and enhanced. And I'll just go ahead and pull open the Smarty website and show you what it looks like to validate an address using strict mode. So strict mode is what it sounds like. It's more strict in its validation. It will standardize whatever input you give it, but only if it validates. So only if the address is actually real. So you can see here, this is the input I've given it, which is just an address that I found. I'm including it all in the street line, so you can just include it all in there. You could componentize it if you wanted and be like, oh, the city's here, state's here, zip code's here. But I just put it on the street line, and I use strict mode. And then you can see we got a response over here. This address existed, because if it didn't, it would have come back as an empty array. You can also tell it existed because of this this match code that this is a USPS match code. And so that's what it looks like when you validate something in strict mode. So that's
just to be clear. So we are on Smarty's website here, but this is not just the single address validation tool. This is a demo of the API deliverable. This is what if you set up the US Street address API, this is what that will actually be spitting out. So you can demo this live on our site. But it's the API demo tool, not just the single address lookup.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is very similar to how it well, not only similar, this is exactly how you set it up when you do it yourself. So that's strict mode. And enhanced mode, I've chosen this address here. This address is an address that is not included in the USPS's data. So using strict mode, you will not be able to find it. So this is what it looks like when you get nothing. It's just a little empty array there. But now if I just simply switch this to, say, enhanced, it'll now be using our enhanced matching, and it'll be able to find the address. There's a few additional fields here for enhanced mode. One of them is Smarty key, which is our unique persistent identifier for every address in the United States, as well as there's this enhanced match field. So we still provide the USPS's DPV footnote, which tells you A1, meaning it's not a valid address. But here we have a more human readable one provided by Smarty that just says non-postal match. So you know that this is not one that the USPS services, but other companies may be interested in this. Like, you still might be able to get a package delivered here. So other companies might want to still have that address. So yeah, anything non-postal will not be able to be found by strict mode. That's one of the big differences. We'll now look at a more formal definition of both of these. This is from our Smarty website, our documentation. So strict mode, it says it'll return detailed output only if a valid match is found. Otherwise, the API response will be an empty array, which we saw that. It has a strict matching mechanism. Whereas enhanced mode will return a detailed response based on a more aggressive matching mechanism. It also includes a more comprehensive address data set beyond just the postal address data, which we saw that too. We already used an address that you were unable to find using strict mode, using just the USPS's data set. Without further ado, I guess we'll be looking at some examples of, oh dear. Oh, I got to go out of full screen probably. There we go. So here is some code I wrote up just to demo the difference between strict mode and enhanced mode, more directly look at more specific strengths and weaknesses. So this is written in Go, and I just used the Go SDK provided by Smarty to access this. I'm not going to go into the details of what the code actually does unless questions go that way, I guess. But for now, I'm just going to go through some of the examples I have typed up. So this will be running against our API live. So here's an example of the left side is just my input, right side. Here's what it says when it doesn't find any results. So my input was this is not going to validate, so it didn't get anything. This here is just, I think it's the same address we used earlier. As you can see, it still validates, gets the same thing. But now I wanted to emphasize a few strengths. Strict mode doesn't just, fail if you blow it on an address. Like here, if you take out the zip code, we're still able to validate the address. If you take out the city and the state, but leave the zip code, you are also still able to validate the address. Also, if you leave things out like the street suffix, you leave that out, we'll still be able to validate it. If you leave out the directional, we are also still able to validate it. Now with strict mode, it's not super consistent from address to address what you'll be able to drop and won't drop. Like maybe if I dropped like the directional and the street suffix, it might fail to find it. There's not really a guarantee on that, but it isn't just going to get it if it's exactly the same. There is a little bit of flexibility on strict mode. You'll just see that through the examples that enhanced mode is a lot more flexible. So move on to our next example, which will be our typos. And I'll move that away. Okay, so here this will be my input. I'm just typing in this address in Orem, and you can see that strict mode and enhanced mode both found it. So still works pretty good. Now, if I decide to typo on university, it looks like I removed some letters. Then you can see that strict mode now can't find it, but enhanced mode is still able to find it. Strict mode is usually very particular about the street name. If the street name is misspelled, strict mode will usually not be able to find it. Whereas enhanced mode does have a bit of leeway, as you can see, because I keep removing letters and strict mode can't find it. Enhanced mode can. Keep removing letters, we're still finding it. I can also remove the suffix with the misspelled university, and we'll still find it. I can remove the zip code, and once again, we're still able to find it. And then I can remove the directional, so we're basically just typing in 800 misspelled university Orem, Utah, and it is still able to find that address, and it throws in the directional, the street suffix, as well as the zip code. Then this last one I have here is just another interesting one. You can also leave out some of the spaces, and enhanced mode will be able to find it, whereas strict mode will not be able to. Enhanced mode is definitely a lot better at separating things like directionals and numbers and letters, whereas strict mode isn't so good at that. So that's the typo examples I have. I have some zip codes here. You can type in the wrong zip code, and you see that strict and enhanced are able to both find it. So the correct zip code is found here. This is the zip code they typed in. So you can see that strict mode isn't super reliant on that either. But it does turn out that if maybe you forgot how many digits are in a zip code, then strict mode is going to fail to find it, but enhanced mode still will get that same zip code. And that's true of both the typo examples I have. Next up. Yes.
Here's a question or two that have come up. So one person wanted to know what our main sources are for non-postal addresses, non-USPS. We do pull that information from several of proprietary areas. That's kind of our secret sauce. I don't necessarily. You can talk to an account executive and see how much they'll tell you. They don't tell me because they're worried that I'll announce something in a webinar. But we do. Trusted sources, I guess, is the answer. And then another question is, we launched enhanced mode some time ago. This isn't necessarily new, but right. Are we making new progress? We're always trying to sharpen up our tools. Is enhanced mode and the fuzzy logic that goes into it, is it getting better regularly?
Yes. In fact, that's pretty much the only thing I've worked on since working at Smarty. Every day I work on touching up enhanced mode. So yeah, we're constantly looking at making it better, making it more what customers are looking for. Um, so yes, it's constantly it's being developed on the daily. That's almost entirely what my team works on. We do not really work on developing strict and invalid mode. We work on developing enhanced mode.
A smarter enhanced mode
Yeah,
with
smarter
machine
enhanced mode.
learning and other things like that.
Yeah, with the machine learning. So obviously with the machine learning, it's always getting smarter as well. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up, we have non-postal example. This one's not too flashy from what we've already seen because it's just three non-postal addresses I've thrown down that strict mode can't find. So this is actually our office building right now has two addresses. One of them is non-postal, so I threw that in here. And as you can see, strict mode can't find it, but enhanced mode can. And then you have just some address in Massachusetts and some address in Minnesota. Those are, or Michigan, sorry. So those are just, we have them across all of the United States. I was just trying to, I guess, show that I had a diversity of addresses by showing several addresses across the United States. I believe there's something like 20 million non-postals that you're able to find using enhanced mode. And then this is my ease of use example where we actually will look a little more at the code. So I just want to demonstrate if you send in your input of that crazy typo missing most of the components and all that. That's this address. That's input here. We're trying to find this address. We're missing quite a bit, missing the directional, the correctly spelled university, all that. And we're getting no results. And if you go look at my ease of use example here, it's because we're using strict mode. I just wanted to show you that switching from enhanced to strict or strict mode to enhanced is also super easy in code, not just on our website demo. All I do here is I come and I type match strategy enhanced. And now I'm using enhanced. And if you'll see if I rerun my example, I find that address now. I didn't bother to prettyify it. I decided to just dump all the information here. So you can see things like, there it is, the Smarty key. That'll just uniquely identify it as this address, as well as all of the address components. We have longitude, latitude. We have some footnotes. These footnotes specifically mean that, we corrected the street spelling and that we have changed a component, which is probably referencing the fact that it had to add a street suffix and it did correct the street spelling.
And that in and of itself can be handy to have, just to know what was changed, rather than just saying, "Here's a result. We corrected parts of it."
Right.
And then you go, "Oh, well, now I have a working address, but what part was corrected? What do I want to double check against?"
Yeah.
Knowing the detail is a surprising thing that some of our competitors don't do.
Yeah, we will specify what kind of changes there are. Those are all like L sharp, M sharp. Those are all they're all letters, and there's 27 of them, different indicators of how the address was changed, or just includes extra information about what changed, or just extra information in general. There's a wide variety. I looked over all the footnotes yesterday. There's a wide variety of responses you can get for them. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff here that is, I mean, I don't even know how to use all of it. I learn about new parts of this every day, like RDI, commercial. Sometimes that says residential. Or you've got your county FIPS. You've got your ELOT. I know we have a precision telling you how precise the geocode is. Like this one says it's going to land on the rooftop. Sometimes it says it'll land on the property. There's all sorts of stuff here. And I believe there's also DPV. This is a pretty useful section, the analysis section. You can see that we have our enhanced match, postal match. So you could read AABB and be like, oh, that means postal match. But as well, there's also an English readable one, which is really nice. That's not provided with strict mode either. So yeah, that's basically the I think a pretty fair showcasing of the differences between strict mode and enhanced mode.
There's several questions about uses for this. So, for example, let's say I want my results only to be USPS addresses. Is it better to use the enhanced mode and then throw out those that come back as non-postal, or should I keep using strict?
I think enhanced would probably be better just because there are all those footnotes that will tell you if it's not, like, it'll be very clear if it is not a USPS address, but you still get that aggressive matching strategy. So if there's a lot of typos in the street name, like it's just a better match. And there's nothing fuzzy about if it came from the USPS or not. So it would just be, you'd get better results using the enhanced matching than you would using strict in that case.
Awesome. If I'm currently using enhanced, using match enhanced, but I might not be getting or viewing the same results, why might that be? Do I have to make updates to my parameters, or is getting the enhanced setting match to enhance pretty much it? And then I'm just going to be customizing these results.
Yeah, there's not any more. I guess I am a little confused by what you mean by different results. As in, like, do you mean like I assume you don't mean
so what we're seeing now, what you're
Yes.
showing us is the actual live enhanced mode. There's
Yes.
nothing that's going to be coming out right here.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
Excellent. So I think the idea is that as this was advertised, we are finding that a lot of people are using Smarty, but they're setting it to strict mode because they're like, we really want to make sure it's accurate. I think the goal of this is to say that with enhanced mode, you're not throwing away anything that you would get with strict.
right.
In fact, you're getting more, and you can still protect yourself by looking at all of the feedback information.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, well, I really only want to get super valid addresses, therefore, in my mind, that's strict. So you set it to strict mode. That's not necessarily going to get you the best results. If you set it to enhanced and then you look at the results in their entirety, you will find better information on how to make a decision on what to do with that address. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true, that it should only add. It should not. There's nothing that you don't lose anything by using enhanced. You only add things by using enhanced.
Excellent. Let's say something does get changed. I put in an address. Will the enhanced mode ever change the primary number or apartment or lot number in order to make a match?
What was the second part? You said the primary or the what? The lot number?
Right. Essentially the primary number. So if
Yeah.
I put in 10 West Courier Street, but there isn't a 10 West Courier Street, but there is an 11 West or an 8 West Courier Street, will enhanced match change that and then say, by the way, we changed your primary number?
That is a good question.
Can we test it?
We can. We just go to our. I don't know if I can even contrive an example. I'll say what I think. What I know about it first. I do know that it is not out of the question the primary number will be changed, but that's it's more complicated than that because it's not going to change the primary if it thinks it's the primary. If it thinks something's the primary, just like strict mode, it's gonna it tries to be very strict about the primary and will not change it. The cases where it changes the primary are very, very rare and will only happen if the input is filled with a lot of garbage. If you just type in an address, it will not change the primary. But if you have maybe like your address C got thrown in there, so like the primary is now not the first thing, it might go like, oh, hey, look, I could change that a little. But I don't like the cases where the primary number are changed by enhanced mode are about as common as the cases where strict mode will change the primary number. So it's not, it doesn't change the primary number essentially by design. It would have to be a really muffled input for that to happen.
Okay, awesome. What about if there's more than one match? How does that work? So, for example, if you've got 800 West and 800 East University Parkway, but the input is 800 University Parkway, how does enhanced mode handle that, knowing the difference between those two?
It will. So you're saying like if I left off a directional?
Sure.
Yes, it will just return both of them. So it'll give you
Okay,
both of
cool.
them.
When
Both
in
of them
doubt,
will
here's
say,
both
"Hey."
answers.
Huh?
When in doubt, here's both
Yeah,
answers.
exactly. And for both of them, it'll say, "Hey, I added a directional." So you'll know, okay, like one of the components was changed on both of these. So you can write code around that to handle that logic and be like, oh, if you got multiple results and they have changed components, you could detect like, oh, because sometimes it does return two results, and one of those is definitely the one you're looking for, and sometimes it's ambiguous. And that's why we have all that extra data. So you can write logic around that and say like, hey, well, if this one had footnotes saying it was changed, then we don't want that one versus the one that has no changes. Also, it prioritizes that one. The one that's closer will be returned first, whereas the one that's further away will be returned second. If it's a tie, like removing a directional, it'll just return both of them, no specific order, and you'll be able to see the footnotes that'll tell you.
Okay, awesome. Let's play with that changed a primary number. So like, let's look up Smarty's address, 1476 Sand Hill. But let's change that to 1477 and see if it'll correct it.
Sand Hill Road, Utah. Let's make sure that actually finds it too. You said 78 or 70?
Our actual address is 76.
76. Okay, so it finds it with that. It does not find it with 77.
Okay, so it's not going to correct it. It's
Yeah.
not going to say, well.
No, yeah, the general case, it will not correct it.
Okay.
Like 99.99% of the time, it will not correct it.
Okay.
Anytime it changes the primary should be insanely rare. And strict mode will probably also be changing the primary because it'd have to be really muffled input.
Sure. What about apartment numbers? Will it strip out apartments? Tell us how apartments work.
No,
here.
So apartment numbers are not stripped out. Apartments are pretty much always kept, and you can see that here. If I go to Sand Hill Road and I decide that I want apartment like 305 or whatever, it'll just stick it in and it'll tell you, hey, you've got an invalid secondary in there. So it never we never attempt to strip out a secondary if it's put in there, because we will just tell you, hey, we'll leave the secondary in there and tell you it's invalid. There's a lot of things behind that. A lot of rules that are followed, like you can trust that the Smarty key for this or the delivery point barcode for this will be to the root address if it's an invalid secondary. So we do keep the secondary, and just as rare as changing the primary would be changing the secondary. The secondary will not be changed either to match something. If you type apartment 304 and apartment 305 exists, it will keep 304 even though it's really close. Numbers like that are we're very strict around numbers like that because they're numbers are everywhere in addresses, so it's like you don't want to be like, oh look, there's one that's off by one, but it turns out that's not even remotely what you were looking for. So numbers don't change. We don't have like ranges we're like looking for being like, oh, it's close. We're only looking for what you typed in when it comes to numbers. It's only words we're looking for typos in.
Excellent. If you wouldn't mind scrolling up on this page, just for those who are watching, you can play around with this yourself. You go to, I believe it's resources, and then live API demos. And then here you can pick which ones you want to go to. It defaults to the US Street, but there's loads of these. You can try the autocomplete one. You can try the International Street API and see exactly what those APIs are delivering out. So smarty.com and then resources and live API demos. And you can play with those to your heart's content. We even have, I think there's demo address, sample data sets. So you don't even have to have an address if you don't want to. You can just say select sample from sample data set, and it'll put in a bunch of these addresses and show you exactly what those would spit out.
And there are more fields too. Here's all the fields that you can include in your request that are not, I guess they're not the vanilla ones,
Sure.
the ones that you use most of the time. Yeah.
We're going to see additional ones. Could you show us that same address with strict? It looks like it's set to enhanced.
Probably still find it. Yeah.
Yep.
It just doesn't give you a Smarty key.
No Smarty key and
no enhanced match field.
Right. So they're just I mean, most people have access to the enhanced and then they just don't use it.
Yeah.
But there's a plethora of data out there.
Yeah.
Great. I'll let a couple more questions come in. But yeah, I just want to encourage you. So the call to action for today's webinar is go try it out. You can play with it as I showed there on the API demo. You can also get a demo with an account executive. You can schedule that also at smarty.com or play around with things like that. Another question, what happens if some value is intentionally problematic, like a negative primary unit or bad characters or something fraudulent? Will it still catch it? Will it deliver?
I mean, most characters are removed that are like special characters and whatnot. If you put a negative primary number, it just wouldn't include the dash that you put in the front of it. And that should be true of both strict and invalid mode, or not strict and invalid, strict and enhanced mode. They should both not be using, like they'll if there's a bunch of junk characters in there, they will ignore them.
Okay, great. Another person says that they're testing this via Postman and they don't see the enhanced match field in the return. Is that not available via the trial?
Yeah, the enhanced match, like the parameter you put in to say that what lookup type it is, does not come back with the response. If that's what you're asking, it won't come back and say this was a strict response, this was enhanced response. When I am testing our products, I just keep track of that. I just say, oh, this lookup that I sent in used enhanced, and I just label it as such on my end of the code. But our servers and our API doesn't keep track of, does not return to you what lookup you used. I believe, maybe I'm wrong though.
I mean, you will have enhanced match data come back.
Yes, you'll be able, yeah, you would be able to tell from that, but I don't believe. I mean, this is the actual response, right? Actually, no, I take it back. I think I actually could just print out. Sorry, I might have been completely wrong, because I actually think if I print out the whole thing, it might give it to me. So this might just be a Postman thing. Oh, it does.
Yeah, the
Okay.
very last
Yeah.
thing is enhanced match,
So it's right.
postal match.
So it is. So yeah, that's true. You can look at the enhanced match down there, but also in the lookup object, I guess this kind of, I'm not sure what it's looking like on the Postman side, but when any of the SDKs you use, your lookup, I guess this is kind of true to what I said the first time. The server doesn't return to you and tell you, hey, you used enhanced, because you just hold on to your original lookup, and then you'll see, oh yes, it was enhanced. So if I do print out the lookup that I sent in and came back, it still says enhanced. So technically the API didn't tell me that it was enhanced, it just left it there. If that makes sense. I don't know, like I said, I don't know what it looks like from Postman's side. But I do know that, and actually if you look at one of these, I'm pretty sure this also doesn't include your lookup strategy. I think what I said originally is true, that your end will just keep track of if you sent in strict, enhanced, invalid. As Andrew said, there are like signs that you used enhanced. You can look and say, oh, look, there's an enhanced match field. I used enhanced, because if it was strict, I wouldn't have that. Or if you had a Smarty key. So there are ways to tell, but there's not like a label in the response that says, hey, you used enhanced or strict.
And whether you're in the trial or not, you should still get that as long as you can set match strategy to enhanced or something along that, depending on what you're using to call that. Great. Well, we are out of time. Thank you very much, Easton. Thanks everybody for joining us. Hope you got out of it what you were hoping to. If you ever have any questions, one other thing right there, if you can go back to the website, I know you just tried to do what I wanted to do, but I'm changing my mind. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little bubble, a little chat bubble. This is for our support team, and they're real people. There's no robots. The moment you chat in something, it pings, in this case, Lyle at his desk, and he responds immediately. And our support team is ready to answer questions, whether you're a customer or not. They just want to make sure that you're getting what you want out of the APIs and out of our address data. So if you are playing around with it and you have any further questions, please do use that chat feature and we'll answer all of your questions. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks, Easton. And we'll see you guys all at our next webinar.